Once again, I was dragged out just to be made a joke, all because of a pain I had buried deep inside my heart. The miscarriage I once suffered. And what hurt even more, the person who let it happen was my own sister, the one I gave everything for, the one I tried to make happy, even in place of our parents. I stayed silent. I endured. Until I heard these words come out of her mouth. Claudia wasn't wrong. You don't have kids. You're infertile. You should just accept that. And from that moment on, I was no longer her sister. After that party, everything inside me felt shattered. But if someone were to ask, why would you go through all that trouble to throw such an extravagant party for someone like that? I wouldn't hesitate to answer, because I once believed that I loved my little sister more than anyone else in this world. My name is Allison, and this story begins with the most beautiful moment I had ever experienced in my life. Seeing those 2 red lines appear on a pregnancy test after months and months of waiting and disappointment. Jason, my husband, and I had been trying to conceive for nearly 2 years. It was a long, exhausting journey, filled with hope that constantly gave way to heartbreak. I still remember that night I lay crying in the bathroom, holding a negative test in my hand, while Jason sat behind the door, saying nothing, just quietly letting me cry out all the pain I was holding inside. And then, finally, I got pregnant. I couldn't even believe it was real. It felt like a miracle, like a gift from the universe after everything we had been through. Jason wrapped his arms around me, and the tears just wouldn't stop. We sat there for hours in our tiny kitchen, under the warm, yellow light, dreaming about the future, about the little one who would soon call us Mom and Dad. But our joy stayed quiet. I chose to keep it a secret. No family announcements, no social media posts, none of the excited sharing you often see from expecting moms. I had miscarried once before, and that fear never truly left me. It haunted my dreams, crept into my thoughts. The memory of waking up in the middle of the night, reaching for my belly and feeling nothing. It left a scar that never healed. The second reason I kept it a secret was Bonnie, my younger sister. Bonnie had just gotten pregnant with her first child, and for my family, it was like a never-ending celebration. All eyes were on her. My mom couldn't stop talking about becoming a grandmother, and Bonnie was constantly sharing ultrasound photos, posting about every wave of morning sickness on Facebook. I didn't blame her. I was actually happy for her, because I understood that feeling of having a tiny, magical life growing inside you for the very first time. It truly is a miracle. So, when she asked me to plan her baby shower, the big celebration before the baby arrives, I didn't even hesitate. I said yes right away. Even though I was nauseous, exhausted, and emotionally up and down, I still gave it everything I had to make it perfect. Every flower color, every ribbon, every little cupcake was picked to her exact taste. I put up dozens of decorations, printed the menus myself, cut out each invitation by hand, all for one reason. I wanted my sister to have a beautiful day, exactly as she dreamed. Now, you might be asking, did Bonnie know you were pregnant? The answer is no. I had planned to tell her. I came close a few times, but I held back, because I didn't want her to think I was trying to steal the spotlight or turn her party into my announcement. And I truly believed that if I came from a place of sincerity, of genuine love, then others would appreciate that too. I stayed up all night before the party. I worried about every detail, from the candy table to the gift corner. I even ironed every tablecloth crease by hand. I hired a well-known local chef who charged a premium just to make sure every dish looked and tasted amazing. And honestly, that day, when Bonnie walked in, her eyes sparkled with joy. She hugged me and said, "I can't believe it's all so beautiful." I nearly cried. In that moment, I felt like every ounce of effort was worth it. Maybe I was naive to think that someone who poured her heart into organizing a party for her sister would automatically be valued and protected by that same sister. I never expected that just hours later, when Claudia walked in, everything would fall apart so fast. But Sep, what hurt the most wasn't the insult from an outsider. It was when my own flesh and blood stood there in silence, and then turned to me and said, "You don't have a baby. That's just the truth. You need to accept it." In that moment, a door closed inside me. A door to trust, to family, and to all the beautiful things I had believed in for so many years. I used to believe there are moments in life when all you need is a hug, a knowing glance, and it could heal 1,000 cracks in your heart. But that day, I realized sometimes silence is more brutal than any insult. Ever since Bonnie hugged me when she arrived at the party, I finally let out a breath of relief. Everything was going according to plan. Every detail was perfectly arranged, and guests began to trickle in. Everyone seemed happy, laughter echoed throughout the room, and I, for the first time in weeks, felt at ease. I never imagined that the real nightmare was just about to begin, the moment Claudia walked in. Claudia, Bonnie's best friend since elementary school, had always been a controversial presence in our family. To me, she was like a hybrid between a stage actor and an emotional manipulator. Always loud, always acting like she knew everything, and especially fond of grabbing attention with her sarcastic remarks. I didn't invite her because I liked her. I did it because she was Bonnie's best friend, and I had promised to make Bonnie's day complete, with no one important missing. But the moment Claudia stepped through the door, I knew I had made a mistake. The first thing out of her mouth was, "Wait, this is the theme? Looks more like a birthday party for an 8-year-old than a baby shower." I stood there, adjusting the tablecloth, lips pressed tight. I turned to Bonnie, hoping she'd say something to check her friend. But no, she just laughed, hugged Claudia, and said, "Come on, don't be so hard on my sister. She did a really good job." It sounded harmless. But you know what, Sep? That was the first red flag for me, that today, I'd be alone. And just as I feared, Claudia didn't stop there. Throughout the party, she kept dropping passive-aggressive comments about the food, the decorations, even the guest list. At one point, she turned to me and asked, "So, where'd you get the catering from? Looks kinda budget-friendly, or did you cook all this yourself?" I held it in. I kept smiling politely, but inside, every word she said was like a needle, pricking the fragile calm I was trying so hard to maintain. Even when guests complimented the food, Claudia took a bite of the cake and said, "Yeah, it's all right, but it's kind of greasy though, not great for people who gain weight easily." I couldn't take it anymore. I replied, "That's funny. If it's so greasy, why are you on your third plate?" The room went silent for a beat. Claudia flushed, glared at me, then quietly backed off. I thought maybe that would shut her up, but no, she was just saving up for a deeper cut, a cut no one saw coming. When it came time for gifts, everything warm, happy, emotional, Claudia suddenly stood up, tapped her glass, and asked to make a speech. I froze. My muscles tightened. She started with some sweet lines, congratulating Bonnie, reminiscing about their childhood friendship. Everyone smiled. Then, the next sentence froze the whole room. "I just think it's a little sad that the person throwing this baby shower is Bonnie's sister, someone who doesn't have kids. But then again, maybe this is the closest she'll ever get to experiencing a baby shower. You know, given her, fertility situation." Silence. The air was sucked out of the room. And me? It felt like I'd been punched in the chest. My heart hurt. My hands shook. I glanced at Bonnie, waiting for her to say something, but she said nothing. Claudia wasn't done. She kept going, pretending to be clueless. "Oh? Oops, I thought everyone knew. Didn't she have a miscarriage before?" "Right, Bonnie." This time I looked straight at my sister. I was hoping for even a glance of defense, a simple word to stop this madness. But Bonnie looked away. Not because she didn't hear, but because she chose not to hear. That feeling, having your deepest wound laid bare in front of everyone, by a stranger, and permitted by your own flesh and blood, is a kind of humiliation I never thought I'd have to endure. I stood up, trying to keep my voice steady. "If you're going to insult me, at least get your facts straight. I'm pregnant." Gasps. The room was stunned. Claudia fell silent. But the person who hurt me most was Bonnie. She scoffed, then said, "So what? You're pregnant? So what? The miscarriage happened. The infertility, that was real too." At that exact moment, I knew this relationship could not be saved. I didn't walk out of that room because I was weak. I didn't leave because I couldn't handle the humiliation. I walked out because I realized that staying 1 minute longer would mean trampling on the last shred of dignity I had left. I stepped outside under the stunned gazes of dozens of guests. Some looked uncomfortable, some looked away, but not a single person tried to stop me. No one, except my mother and Bonnie. My mom was the first to rush after me. She grabbed my hand and whispered, "Don't make a scene. Sisters fight and say things they don't mean. Walking out like that makes your sister lose face in front of all these people." I turned to look at her. My eyes were brimming with tears. And in that moment, I didn't know what hurt more. Claudia's cruel, poisonous words, or my mother's half-hearted attempt to smooth it over. The same mother who once held me when I lost my first child. So I asked her, "You don't think it's a big deal when someone publicly shames me in front of everyone?" She didn't answer. She just gripped my hand tighter and mumbled, "Claudia was drunk. She didn't mean it. And don't blame Bonnie either. She's just caught in the middle." Then Bonnie came out too, her face slightly red. Maybe from embarrassment, maybe from anger. I couldn't tell anymore. "You're overreacting," she said. "What Claudia said wasn't intentional. That's just how she jokes. You should know that by now. Walking out like this just made everyone uncomfortable." I swallowed hard. I held back the sobs building in my chest. And then I asked her for the last time with a voice so calm it was ice cold, "If I had stayed, would you have asked Claudia to leave?" Bonnie froze. She looked at me like I'd asked something absurd. "I can't do that. Claudia's my best friend. I can't kick her out over one slip of the tongue." A slip of the tongue? A slip of the tongue that brought up infertility and miscarriage just to mock me in front of a crowd? No. That wasn't a slip. That was intentional. That was malicious. And worst of all, it was protected and enabled by my own family. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just clenched my fists, took a deep breath, and said, "Fine. If you choose Claudia, then from now on, you no longer have a sister." Before Bonnie could react, I turned to leave. But just before stepping away, I looked her in the eye and added, "Don't forget to pay the rest of today's party bill. I already paid half. I won't be putting in another cent." That hit her like a slap. She glared at me and snapped, "You can't just leave me with the full cost. This was your idea. You organized this party. You're responsible." I gave a cold smile. "Yes, I organized it, because I thought you were someone worthy of being loved." The next day, my mom called me 3 times. Messages flooded in, saying I was tearing the family apart, saying sisters fight but there are limits, saying Bonnie had to dip into her savings for the catering, and I shouldn't have done this. I didn't respond, because I don't need anyone calling me sister if I'm only valued when I serve them, and disrespected when I ask to be treated with basic human decency. And Bonnie, not only did she not apologize, she sent a barrage of texts blaming me, calling me selfish, saying I don't care about her unborn child, and that I abandoned the whole family over one thing my friend said. Then came the threat. "If you don't pay your half of the catering, I won't let you see my baby after it's born." I looked at that message and just laughed. Some people, when they can't control you with love, will try to control you with guilt, or money, or children, but I'm not who I used to be. I replied with just one sentence. "That's up to you. I have no need to see a child born out of lies and selfishness." Was that harsh? Yes. But I've lived long enough to know, if you keep being gentle, people will start to believe you have no boundaries. Jason, my husband, was the only one fully on my side. When I told him everything, he held my hand tightly, his eyes filled with quiet fury. He simply said, "They're not worth it. You've been far too kind to people who never deserved it." That night, he sent Claudia a direct message, short and sharp, threatening legal action for defamation and personal attacks. He told her if she posted anything else online about me, we wouldn't hesitate to take her to court. Claudia eventually sent a half-hearted apology, blaming the alcohol, the emotions, the circumstances, everything but herself. As for me, I officially cut ties with Bonnie and my mother. No more texts, no more calls, no more sisters, no more mother and daughter. I once gave up everything for them, and they treated me like a servant in the shadows. Now, I choose myself. I choose the child growing inside me, and I choose a life where no one gets to belittle me. Just because I've been through pain. I used to believe that family was the one place I could always return to, no matter how many times the world turned its back on me. But after the night I walked out of my sister's celebration, the one where she let her best friend humiliate me using my most painful secret, I realized something. Sometimes it's family that hurts us the most. After that night, I turned off my phone for 2 full days. Not because I was weak or trying to hide, but because I needed silence. I needed space to breathe, to hear myself again, and to ask the question, why have I allowed myself to be treated this way for so long? But silence doesn't last. On the 3rd day, my mother called, repeatedly. Then came the texts, each one as long as a sermon, and the message never changed. She's still your sister. Bonnie didn't mean it. Claudia was wrong, but she apologized. You can't keep holding a grudge, especially with your niece on the way. Ah, yes, the same old song. I didn't respond, but the quieter I stayed, the louder they got. By the 5th day, Bonnie texted me, not to apologize, but to ask me to babysit her child after she gave birth. I stared at the message in disbelief. After everything that happened, after mocking me for not having children, for supposedly being incapable of being a mother, now she wanted me to be her free babysitter? Bonnie wrote, I've thought it through. No matter what happened, we're still sisters. I know you won't let my baby go without someone to care for her. I'm planning to take just 3 months of maternity leave, then go back to work. I can't afford a nanny, and Mom refuses to help. I just stared at the screen. Not a single word of apology. No admission of any wrongdoing, just cold calculation, manipulation, and the assumption that I would always be the one who never says no. I replied with just one word, no. Less than a minute later, my phone blew up. Bonnie called over and over. Then came the texts, each one slicing like a blade. You're so selfish. You're jealous because you're alone. You'll die old and cold in that empty house of yours. That baby is your niece. Don't you feel anything for your own flesh and blood? She said I didn't deserve to be her sister, that I didn't deserve to be part of this family, and that I'd never be allowed to see her child again. But strangely, I wasn't angry. I found it laughable. Because for the first time, I saw things clearly. In Bonnie's eyes, I was never her sister. I was just an option, a backup plan. Someone to be drained, then discarded when no longer useful. Of course, my mother jumped into the emotional battlefield next. She called that evening while I was lying beside Jason, one hand resting on my belly, feeling the tiny movements of the baby growing inside me. She said, You're being too stubborn. Bonnie's exhausted. She's stressed about money. Even if you don't care about her, you should do it for your niece. It's not like you're working anyway, right? I stayed silent, then calmly replied, If you care about her that much, maybe you should retire early and babysit for her yourself. I don't owe her anything. My mother's voice turned sharp. Don't you realize how heartless you're being? And that was when I finally let go. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply said, I need peace, and I don't want to hear from you or Bonnie anymore. From now on, I choose my family. I choose Jason. I choose this child growing inside me. Don't call me again. Then, I blocked them both. The week that followed felt like a chain had been lifted from my soul. At first, there was a strange emptiness. But after that, came relief. For the first time in years, I felt like I had the right to say no. The right to choose my own life. The right to love myself without being shamed for it. Jason never left my side. He didn't ask for details. Every morning when I woke up with swollen eyes, he just held my hand. He'd rest his palm on my belly, smile, and say, As long as we have each other, we have enough. And he was right. I don't need an entire family to feel whole. I just need someone who truly values me. A child born out of love, not pressure, manipulation, or emotional games. I had imagined the day I'd become a mother more times than I could count. In my most innocent daydreams, I saw myself surrounded by family, loved ones, applause, and tears of joy. I pictured my mother by my hospital bed, holding my hand and saying, "You did great." I saw Bonnie crying as she held her grandchild. But in real life, the day I became a mother, not a single phone call came from them. And strangely, I didn't feel empty. I felt free. The day my daughter was born, it was drizzling outside. The whole city felt washed clean of weariness and sorrow. Jason held my hand through the entire labor, never letting go. And when our baby's first cry echoed in the room, he broke down in tears before I did. A beautiful, strong, peaceful little girl, as if she were born to be the reason I keep living with meaning. I held her in my arms, tears streaming down my face, but my heart burned bright, as if no storm had ever passed through my life. Every wound, every betrayal, every cruel word, they all faded away in that small room where I cradled this tiny soul. I didn't tell anyone in the family. No texts. No ultrasound photos. Not a single baby bump post. I lived the entire pregnancy quietly, taking care of myself, reading baby books, going to my checkups, eating healthy, doing yoga, and writing in a journal each night to the baby inside me as a way to both heal and prepare for a new journey. I wanted the day my child entered this world to be untouched by the people who once belittled her existence. After the birth, I sent only one photo, her sleeping peacefully in my arms, to my maternal grandparents and a few distant relatives. The only people who had ever told me, "You don't have to please anyone, just live true to yourself." Their response warmed my heart. Calls full of congratulations, voices trembling with emotion. They knew I'd miscarried before. They knew what I had endured. And now, they saw me glowing in this new role. But of course, the family drama exploded the moment a cousin spotted the photo I quietly posted on Facebook. My father called first, his voice breaking the silence after so many months. Maybe he realized things had gone too far. He said over the phone, "I didn't know you were pregnant. I didn't know anything. Why would you hide something so big from the whole family?" I gave a soft laugh. "I didn't hide it. It's just, no one asked, and no one stayed long enough to deserve to know." He went quiet, then repeated a line I've heard my entire life. "But still, they're family." I sighed. Family. That word has hurt me more than anything else in this world. I replied, "If they're family, then when Claudia insulted me for miscarrying, for being infertile, for not having kids, why didn't anyone speak up? When I walked out of that party humiliated, why did everyone blame me for causing a scene? When I was threatened with being cut off from my own child, my mom stayed silent. And Bonnie, she called it just the truth. So that's family?" He had no answer, but he didn't apologize either. I've learned some people don't feel remorse. They just feel bothered that you dared to speak up. After that call, I decided to write a letter, a real, handwritten letter, and email it to my mother and Bonnie, not to reconnect, but to sever the last strings still tying me to them. In it, I wrote, "I'm no longer angry, but I also no longer trust. I don't need relatives who only remember I exist when they need something. I don't need half-hearted apologies or lectures about letting go of the past from people who still live by the words that wounded me. I won't allow anyone to insult my unborn child, whether they're my mother, my sister, or anyone else. From now on, don't look for me. If you truly care, let me be." I hit send, then blocked them all. Not long after, Bonnie started posting stories hinting at me. Things like, "Selfish people end up alone," or "You don't get to choose family, but good people don't abandon each other." I didn't care. I was busy, holding my daughter in my arms, rocking her to sleep, teaching her that some people may share your blood. But that doesn't make them family. I don't feel hurt anymore, Sep. I feel relieved. I spent so much of my life doing everything for others. And when I collapsed, no one reached out to lift me up. So now, I choose differently. I choose to live for myself, for my child, For the man who never left my side. I don't need to be understood. I don't need to explain anymore. I don't need to forgive those who never felt sorry. I only need one thing: peace and a family. A real one.